My fiancée brought her ex to our engagement party. She said she didn't owe me fidelity and got angry when I left. When he rejected her, she tried to come back, but it was too late. My name is Ethan. I'm 31, a civil engineer, and I was with Chloe, 29, for 4 years. We got engaged 8 months ago, and as far as I knew, things were going well. We decided to have a simple celebration with family and friends at a nice venue downtown that she chose herself. One afternoon, we were in my kitchen organizing the guest list. She had her laptop open, drafting invitations while I went over the head count for the catering. Everything was normal until she dropped this bomb as if it were nothing. I'm also going to invite Julian. I looked up. Julian? Your ex? Julian? She didn't even stop typing. Yes, he means a lot to me. He was by my side long before you were. Then she gave me that look, as if trying to test me, and added, You're not jealous, are you? I'm not a jealous guy. I don't check her phone. I don't mind her having male friends. But inviting your ex to a party celebrating your upcoming marriage to someone else? That's a total lack of judgment. I replied calmly, That makes me uncomfortable. Wrong answer. She apparently rolled her eyes as if I were speaking another language. It's not your party to control, Ethan. I don't owe you loyalty. We're not married yet. Stop acting like I'm your property. Yes, the woman I was supposed to marry in 6 months told me that. I was silent for a few seconds, processing what I had just heard. We had a 4-year relationship, a shared bank account, and she lived in my apartment, but according to her, she didn't owe me loyalty because we weren't married yet. I took a breath, swallowed my anger, and just said, Do what you think is best. She smiled as if she had won an argument. I knew you'd understand. Julian is really looking forward to seeing everyone. The rest of that night was bizarre. She was glued to her phone the whole time, giggling every 5 minutes like a teenager. When I asked her who she was talking to, she got annoyed and said it was for work. At 11 p.m. on a Saturday, I went to bed early, though I didn't sleep a wink. That phrase kept spinning in my head. I don't owe you loyalty. What kind of person tells their engaged partner that? If she didn't owe me loyalty now, when did she think she would? After signing the marriage license? After the honeymoon? The worst part was that she didn't even try to calm me down or reassure me. She didn't say they were just friends. She didn't offer to introduce us so I could see there was nothing there. Nothing. She just repeated that I couldn't control her. The next day, she acted like nothing had happened. She was singing in the kitchen, making breakfast, talking about the party decorations. I think blue and silver would be perfect, she said while flipping pancakes. Julian always said that color suited me. It wasn't, I don't like how blue looks on me, but Julian always said. I just nodded and drank my coffee, but something inside me broke that night. When someone tells you they don't owe you loyalty, you had better believe them and start making decisions. On Thursday, my sister Rebecca called to ask how the wedding prep was going. I told her about Julian, and she was silent for a few seconds. Ethan, that's not normal. You know that. No, I don't. She made me feel like I was a controlling person for not wanting her ex at our party. You are not being controlling. You have normal boundaries. What's next? Is she going to invite him to your bachelor party? I laughed, but it was more out of nerves than amusement. The sad truth is, I wouldn't have been surprised. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was exhausted, tired of feeling like I had to measure every word, sick of thinking I was competing with a ghost. But being an engineer has its advantages. You learn to solve problems at the root. I checked our joint account. We had $15,000 saved. I had deposited $12,000, and she only $3,000, so I initiated a transfer to get mine back. It would take a couple of days to process, but it was underway. After that, I started canceling everything that was in my name: the venue, the caterer, the photographer. By Saturday morning, the day of the party, I had everything resolved. I separated the bank account, canceled contracts, and even secured an apartment across town, closer to my work. That day, Chloe woke up singing in the shower, as if she were in a romantic comedy. Meanwhile, I mentally reviewed my to-do list, coffee in hand. "I'm so excited for tonight," she said, entering the kitchen in her robe. "It's going to be perfect." "Perfect, sure," I replied without much enthusiasm. "It will definitely be exactly what you're expecting." She gave me a kiss on the cheek, the first in weeks, and began humming a song I didn't recognize. Probably one Julian had recommended. I finished my coffee and got dressed. Black suit, white shirt, simple tie. Nothing ostentatious, but I wanted to look good. This was probably going to be my last public appearance as Chloe's fiancé. The venue was tastefully decorated. Everything seemed fine. People were chatting, toasting, congratulating us. For a moment I even managed to relax, and then Julian showed up. He walked in as if he owned the event. Tall, tanned, wearing one of those shirts that look casual but surely cost a fortune. He had an arrogant smile and a gift bag just for Chloe. She ran to meet him as if she had been waiting for him. "Gabby!" she cried, and they hugged for an uncomfortably long time, so long that several people started to notice. He handed her the gift, and she opened it right there, a necklace with a small pendant. Her eyes watered when she saw it. "You remember everything?" she said, caressing the charm. "Of course, Nana," he replied. Nana. That's what he used to call her. She had told me she hated that nickname. Just another lie. For the rest of the party, he was stuck to her. He touched her back, whispered things in her ear, brought her drinks. I felt like part of the furniture. My mother approached me and asked, "Darling, who is that man with Chloe?" "Her ex-boyfriend," I replied. She looked at me in silence. She didn't say anything else, but I saw clearly that she was connecting the dots. A while later, while I was pouring a soda, I overheard Chloe's friends, Danielle and Sylvia, talking near the restroom. They hadn't seen me. I was standing just around the corner, close enough to hear every word. "I can't believe it. She actually invited him." Then I heard Danielle say, "She confessed to me that she's not sure she wants Ethan." And Sylvia, in a low voice, responded, "She said Julian makes her feel alive again." "And what is she going to do?" asked Danielle. "I don't know, but she's been texting him nonstop for weeks. This whole engagement. I think she's having second thoughts." I stood motionless, letting those phrases hit me. Then, without a word, I walked back to the main room. I walked directly to the DJ, asked for the microphone, and waited for everyone to quiet down. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I said in a firm voice. The atmosphere became heavy in seconds. I looked directly at Chloe, who was standing next to Julian, wearing a bewildered expression. "To you, Chloe, I just want to wish that you find what you're truly looking for, because it's clearly not me." I handed the microphone back to the DJ and left. I didn't run. I didn't yell. I simply walked away. Murmurs started behind me. I heard her voice calling my name, but I didn't stop. I got to my car, got in, and drove away without looking back. Before I left the parking lot, my phone was already vibrating. One message, then another. Soon, the calls became constant. I silenced it and drove in complete silence to my house. When I parked in the driveway, I stayed inside the car for a few minutes. Everything was the same as when we left a couple of hours earlier, but now I felt like I was watching someone else's life. I went inside, dropped onto the sofa, and watched the phone constantly light up. Notifications, missed calls, voicemails, all from Chloe. Some messages displayed on the screen. "Where are you, Ethan? Please come back. Everyone is asking for you. This is humiliating." I placed the phone face down on the table and went to take off my suit. At 11 p.m., the voicemails began. From the bedroom, I could hear the constant buzzing of the phone vibrating on the table. I didn't listen to them. Whatever she had to say, I wasn't ready to hear it yet. Still, I slept better that night than I had in a long time. I guess that's what happens when you stop pretending everything is fine. On Sunday morning, while I was making coffee, someone started pounding forcefully on the door. Not knocking, pounding, as if the house were on fire. The noise echoed throughout the place. It probably woke the neighbors. I looked through the peephole. It was Chloe. She was still wearing the dress from the night before. Her hair was messy, her makeup was smeared, and her cheeks were stained with mascara. She looked like she had spent the entire night crying. I opened the door, and without saying anything, she stormed inside, screaming from the moment she crossed the threshold. "Seriously, Ethan, is this a joke? Are you really going to throw everything away over inviting an ex? So much drama." She moved around my living room like a cornered animal, gesturing with her hands, her voice broken by tears. The dress she had so carefully chosen was wrinkled and had wine stains. I stood in silence, leaning against the doorframe, watching her break down. 4 years together, and it was the first time I had seen her like this, without masks, agitated, desperate, unable to accept that she wouldn't get her way. She kept complaining as if the unforgivable thing had been my leaving her in ridicule, not her spending the night glued to her ex at our engagement party. I, calm, told her what I thought, that she was the one who ruined everything by making it clear who she truly wanted. That made her even more agitated. She started trying to rewrite what had happened. Now Julian was just a friend. The constant messages meant nothing. The gift he gave her was just a gesture. All the details she had boasted about for weeks were now trivial. But then I mentioned what I had overheard her friends saying, that she wasn't sure if she loved me, and that Julian made her feel alive. Her face went pale. She knew instantly that I had heard everything. She tried to backtrack, said it was out of context. She begged me to talk it out, to overcome it. She burst into tears with such intense desperation that her body shook. It wasn't sadness. It was pure panic. I asked her to be honest for once. That's when she completely broke down. She told me I would regret it, that she and Julian were meant to be together, that they always had been. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. "Wait," I said. "You need to come get your things." She stopped. For a second, I thought she was going to argue about that too. "Fine. I'll come tomorrow." "Don't come alone," I warned her. "I don't want another scene." She left, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. That night, I started packing her belongings. I wanted to close that chapter as soon as possible. Then I reached her desk drawer. There were the photos, not one or two as distant memories, an entire pile of pictures with Julian, on the beach, him hugging her, at a restaurant, her laughing, at a wedding, both well-dressed and too comfortable with each other. But that wasn't the hardest part. Beneath the photos, I found handwritten letters with recent dates, all from during our engagement. I opened one. "I can't believe you're going to get married. I still think about what we had. You were the only one I truly loved." Another one said, "Seeing your engagement photos crushed me. You look happy, but do you love him like you loved me?" There were 5 letters in total, each more intense than the last. Julian begging her to reconsider, telling her she was wrong, that they were destined to be together, and she had kept them all. The last one was dated 2 weeks before the party. "I know you invited me, and I know what that means. We both know this marriage isn't for you. Let's talk when we see each other." I sat there staring at those letters over and over, realizing that all of this had been planned from the start. It wasn't a simple friendship or a casual coincidence. It had been a premeditated move, carried out behind my back for months. I gathered her things without much thought, stuffing everything into boxes and bags. Let her sort out her mess when she came for her belongings. In the middle of it, my cell phone vibrated. It was a message from my sister asking if I was okay after what happened at the party. I replied that I would call her later and turned off the phone. For the first time since everything began, I felt like I could breathe. I no longer had to pretend I didn't see the obvious. I no longer had to compete with the ghost of someone else for my fiancé's attention. And the strangest thing was that I didn't feel rage. What I felt was relief. It's better to discover who someone truly is before signing a lifelong commitment. And Chloe had shown me her true colors with total clarity. Someone who considers loyalty an optional luxury, who prefers to chase the adrenaline of the new rather than build something lasting, someone willing to throw away 4 years for a fleeting spark. I spent the rest of Sunday doing ordinary things. That night, I decided to listen to the voicemail she had left me, 12 in total. They started with an annoyed tone and became increasingly distressed as the hours passed. The last one, recorded at 6 a.m., had her voice trembling, almost unrecognizable, begging me to call her, saying we still had time to fix things. But there was nothing to fix. You can't mend something when the other person has already decided to leave you behind. You can't negotiate the affection of someone who has already given it to another. I deleted all the messages without hesitation and went back to my Sunday routine. It was undoubtedly one of the best decisions I made. On Monday, I got up at my usual time, made coffee, and went to work as if nothing had happened. It felt strange driving to the office knowing I was technically single again, but at the same time, it was liberating. No more texts asking when I'd be home, no complaints about not giving notice about dinner, no more constant tension in the atmosphere. My co-workers still didn't know what happened at the party, so it was a day like any other. Around 6 p.m., she showed up. She was accompanied by her father. The man, clearly uncomfortable, avoided looking me in the eye. He seemed ashamed, as if he knew perfectly well the mess his daughter had caused. I always liked him. He worked in construction for 3 decades, a straightforward guy, no nonsense, and no tolerance for foolishness. "Ethan," he said when he saw me, "I'm sorry about all this." "No problem. Her things are there by the door." It took us about 20 minutes to load everything into his pickup truck. I didn't mention the letters or the photos. I figured she would find them when she unpacked, and would then realize how aware I was of the magnitude of her betrayal. Chloe didn't say a word. She just told her father where to put each item. When they finished, she came back to the door. "Is this really the end?" she asked me. "Aren't you going to change your mind?" "It is the end," I replied firmly. She looked on the verge of crying again. But her father was already in the vehicle waiting for her. She got in without saying anything else, and they drove away. The following week brought some surprises. On Tuesday, while I was working, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Ethan, this is Patricia, Chloe's mother." I was about to hang up, but she had always been kind to me. A high school teacher for 30 years, a decent woman. It wasn't her fault her daughter turned out to be a mess. "I wanted to apologize for what happened at the party and for Chloe's behavior," she said. "You don't have to apologize for her decisions," I replied. "Yes, I do. We raised her with better values. What she did was disrespectful and embarrassed us as a family." She told me she had a very tough talk with Chloe about commitment and respect, that you can't invite your ex to your engagement party and then expect everything to be okay. But according to her, the conversation hadn't worked. Chloe insisted I was controlling and that Julian was just a friend. Patricia, however, was clear. "I've been married for 35 years, Ethan. I know what it means when someone is no longer truly committed." Before hanging up, she told me something that stuck with me. "You didn't deserve any of this. She just lost the best thing she had." That same Thursday evening, I received a message from Sebastian, a friend who had been at the party. "Saturday was crazy. Chloe spent the night crying, and Julian disappeared. What happened?" I told him the basics without going into detail. He replied that it was noticeable how strange the whole thing was, that many people commented on how uncomfortable Julian's presence made everyone feel. Nobody understood what he was doing there or why he acted with so much confidence. But the real bomb arrived on Friday afternoon. My sister called me laughing. "You have to hear this," she said. "Sylvia messaged me. Julian broke up with Chloe yesterday." I nearly dropped my coffee in surprise. "What?" "Yes. He told her he didn't want anything serious, that maybe they could hang out sometime." Just like that. The typical speech of someone who only plays with other people's feelings. So, Chloe ruined everything for someone who didn't even intend to be with her. She had built a whole illusion in her head, and he simply used her. According to Rebecca, Chloe had been missing work for days, crying all the time, and repeating that she had made a huge mistake. And I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just a deep sense of fatigue, as if I could finally close that chapter and move on with my life. Meanwhile, the rumors continued to spread, and her professional reputation began to suffer. She worked in public relations, a field where personal image is everything. Having your engagement publicly fail because you invited your ex-partner isn't exactly a good message for your clients. According to Sebastian, 2 of them withdrew their contracts, and her boss discreetly reassigned her to a lower-profile team. Ironic that someone dedicated to managing public image didn't know how to manage her own. That weekend, I started looking for a new apartment. I found a 1-bedroom 10 minutes from work, a bit more expensive, but with my recent promotion, I could easily afford it. On Sunday night, while I was packing, I received another message from an unknown number. For a moment, I thought it was Chloe again, but no. This time it was Julian. "Hey man, sorry how everything turned out. Chloe told me you guys broke up. It wasn't my intention to complicate anything." I stared at the screen, unsure whether to laugh or get angry. This guy had sabotaged my relationship, left her stranded, and now he was texting me as if it had all been a misunderstanding. I deleted the message without replying. Some people aren't even worth the effort of a response. 2 months after that party, I was settled in my new home and, honestly, enjoying it more than ever. I went back to the gym, something I hadn't done in years. Nothing extreme, just weights and some cardio 3 times a week. It turns out that when you don't live in constant tension, you start dedicating time to taking care of yourself, and that, too, was definitely a victory. I wasn't dating anyone, wasn't even looking. After 4 years with someone who ended up being very different from what I thought, I was taking time to enjoy my own company. I was rediscovering what I liked to do when I didn't have to constantly negotiate every detail of my life with another person. The routine was simple, predictable, and without drama. And of course, I should have known that calm wouldn't last. It was a Tuesday in late November. I was coming back from the gym. Upon arriving at my apartment complex, I saw a car that looked too familiar parked in the visitor area. A silver Honda Civic with a dent in the rear bumper, the same one Chloe had gotten when she backed into a mailbox a couple of years ago. I felt a lurch in my stomach. I hadn't heard from her in over a month, not since those desperate voicemails she left after the party. I quickened my pace with my gym bag over my shoulder, hoping she hadn't seen me. But of course, I wasn't lucky. As soon as I pressed the elevator button, I heard her voice behind me, calling my name. I turned around. She looked different, thinner, as if she had been neglecting herself. She had dark circles under her eyes that not even makeup could hide. Her hair was much shorter than before, styled in that drastic way many women choose when they want to start over after a breakup. She asked to talk, and against my instinct, I let her come up to my apartment. She walked in and observed everything as if it were an exhibit. She made vague comments about how nice the place looked. I remained standing while she, without asking permission, settled onto the sofa as if the space still belonged to her. I knew exactly what she was there for. She had rehearsed everything. She admitted she had made a mistake, the worst of her life according to her. Julian, she said, had only used her. He never wanted a relationship. All he wanted was to separate us, and when he succeeded, he got bored of her and left with someone else. She started to cry. Quiet tears, not of anger, but of defeat, the kind of crying that comes when you no longer have the energy to justify anything. She claimed she had ruined everything, our years-long relationship, the plans, the future, all for someone who didn't even care about her. She asked if we could still fix it, that we were happy together, that we even had wedding plans, that it was still worth fighting for what we had. I reminded her of what she told me that day in front of everyone, about not owing me loyalty, about Julian being better than me, her choice to pick him over me in front of every person who mattered to us. With every point I mentioned, she winced as if I were hitting her. She always had an excuse. She was confused. Julian was filling her head with ideas. She was hurt and acted impulsively. True love included forgiveness. Everyone makes mistakes. I looked at her. There she was on my sofa, crying over the consequences of her own decisions. And I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no desire to comfort her. Nothing, just a great emptiness, which made me realize how distant everything I once felt for her had become. It was actually quite sad. Only after her first choice rejected her did she remember that, according to her, I was the love of her life. Now she was coming back, looking to reconcile, do couples therapy, whatever was necessary, she said. But when I told her no, she seemed bewildered, as if she struggled to accept that after everything she did, I no longer wanted to take her back. She tried to make me feel guilty. After 4 years, you're not even going to try? She asked me. I calmly replied that there was nothing to try. She had shown me who she really was, and I believed her. It wasn't a simple mistake. It was decisions, one after another, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. She stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time, trying one final manipulation. She warned me that I would regret it, that she was the best thing that ever happened to me. I opened the door and replied without hesitation, "No, the best thing that happened to me was you leaving my life." She didn't say anything else. She left in silence. I closed the door, locked it, and went back to my evening as if nothing had happened. I made dinner, watched the news, and went to bed early. For the first time since all this began, I felt absolute peace with the decision I made. There's something liberating about seeing someone reveal their true colors so clearly that you're left with no doubts or unanswered questions about the relationship. The funniest thing is that her strategy was so obvious. Wait for the initial pain to dissipate. Show up with a vulnerable and repentant image and assume I would welcome her back with open arms as if I had been waiting for that moment the whole time, as if I were an emotional doormat she could clean her mistakes on. But I was no longer the same person she had left 2 months ago. That guy might have forgiven her. He might have convinced himself that everyone deserves a second chance, that the important thing was to have someone familiar nearby. But no. I had learned that when someone shows you that they consider loyalty optional, the best thing you can do is believe them and not let them show you the same thing a second time. During the following days, I wondered if she would try again, show up at my work, send a letter, use mutual friends to intercede for her. But nothing happened. Perhaps she finally understood that there are bridges that, once destroyed, cannot be rebuilt. Or maybe she simply found another person to fill the role of the backup plan in her next romantic disaster. Either way, it was no longer my concern. And the best part was realizing that I didn't miss her one bit. I missed the idea of sharing life with someone, yes, but not her specifically. What I had now was much better. Tranquility, balance, the freedom to build my path without having to answer to anyone. And if someone who truly valued that life ever came along and wanted to be a part of it, perfect. But what I was clear about was that I wouldn't settle for less again. Some lessons, even if they hurt, are worth learning the hard way. 6 months after the disaster at that engagement party, I was in one of the best moments of my life. Work was going perfectly. The promotion I had earned had opened the way to even bigger projects, and I was slowly gaining a reputation for being someone capable of solving complex structural challenges effectively. In that context, I met someone. Her name is Valerie. She's a primary school teacher who works near my office. I met her at a coffee shop one afternoon. She was grading papers while I reviewed some blueprints. She seemed like a calm person. No drama, no history, with no ex-boyfriends lurking in her past. Simply someone who enjoyed simple things like movies and walks, and didn't feel the need to constantly test me. One Saturday afternoon, we went together to the large downtown supermarket. We were in the pasta aisle when I saw her. Chloe was about 20 feet away with a basket in her hand, chatting with a guy I didn't recognize. Tall, good-looking, and dressed in a jacket that probably cost more than my car. My first impulse was to turn around and walk away. I didn't want that kind of energy in my life, much less risk Valerie getting caught up in an uncomfortable scene. But it was too late. Chloe had seen me. I tried to maneuver the cart toward another shelf, hoping she would continue with her business, but she called my name out loud, as if we were old friends running into each other by chance. She walked toward us with the man behind her, who seemed confused by the situation. Chloe looked Valerie up and down and let out a sarcastic comment. Something about how quickly I had found a replacement. I maintained courtesy and introduced them, but she didn't even acknowledge Valerie. Instead, she launched into her own performance. It turns out she had also met someone. The man accompanying her was named Simon, although he seemed increasingly uncomfortable the more Chloe spoke. She wasn't content with just introducing him. "Oh, sorry, Simon, I didn't introduce him properly," she said, with that piercing tone I knew so well, the one she used whenever she wanted to attack without raising her voice. "This is Ethan, my ex. We were going to get married, but he decided to ruin everything because he can't stand his partner having male friends." The aisle fell into an awkward silence. I felt Valerie's hand take mine, not as a possessive gesture, but as a form of silent support. Simon looked at Chloe and then at me, not entirely understanding what mess he had walked into. Then, with total calmness, I replied, "Did you also tell him that you invited your ex to our engagement party and spent the whole night flirting with him?" Simon's expression completely transformed. "What is wrong with you?" He snapped at Chloe, his eyes wide. "You're crazy." Without another word, he dropped the basket on the floor, turned around, and walked out of the store. Through the windows, we watched him get into his car and drive away without looking back. Chloe stood there for a few seconds, watching him leave. Then she turned back to me, her eyes starting to fill with tears. "Are you happy now, Ethan?" I looked at her in silence. That woman, the same one I had planned a future with whom I had shared 4 years of my life, had become unrecognizable. Everything we had built, she had destroyed by giving in to an impulse, by giving more importance to a guy who ended up leaving her as soon as he got what he wanted. And now she had ruined another relationship because she couldn't stand seeing me move forward. "It's not about whether I'm happy or not," I told her. "What happened between you two is your business." "You drove him away from me," she accused. "I only told him the truth. What he did with that information was his decision." Valerie touched my arm gently. "Shall we go?" she asked softly. I nodded, and we headed toward the checkout area. I could hear Chloe say something behind us, but I didn't stop. It was no longer my responsibility to deal with her words. As we put the groceries on the conveyor belt, Valerie commented, "So, that was your ex. She seems intense." I gave a brief laugh. "Yeah, that's one way to put it. Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. I thought about it as we moved up in the line. Did I really want to relive all that? Tell her about Julian, about that party, about the chaos that came after? No, it wasn't worth it. "It's old history," I replied. "Very old." On the way to the car, I realized that something inside me had changed. For months, I had feared running into Chloe, as if that moment could destabilize me, as if it would take me back to the point where everything fell apart. But I felt nothing anymore. She was simply another person in the world. Her problems had ceased to be mine. As I drove, I knew with certainty that this had been the last encounter with her. In barely half a minute, I had shown Simon who she truly was, and he, quite rightly, decided to walk away. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had made her choices, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. The best part of all was that Valerie witnessed the whole thing and didn't run away. On the contrary, she seemed even more interested in getting to know me. Sometimes it turns out there are people who truly value stability and honesty in a relationship. Who would have thought? The takeaway from all of this? If someone shows you they don't feel they owe you loyalty, believe them. And then show them what a life looks like where you no longer owe your future to anyone. Sometimes the best revenge is simply to live in peace and not look back.